What do you do when your 8-year-old son asks you, do grandparents only love blood kids? What's inside a mysterious red box that makes a grown woman storm out of her own house? And how does one brave little boy teach his entire family what it really means to belong? This is the story of the day everything changed. Picture this. It's Sunday afternoon, and the whole family's gathered around Grandma Evelyn's dining table. The smell of her famous pot roast fills the air, everyone's laughing, sharing stories about their week. It's one of those perfect family moments you see in movies, but then something happens that makes everyone go dead silent. My 8-year-old son Kai stands up from his chair. He's holding this small red box in his hands, and he walks over to his grandmother with the kind of determination that makes your heart skip a beat. The entire room freezes. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Even my daughter Lily puts down her phone. Kai looks up at Grandma Evelyn and says, "Grandma, Dad told me to give this to you if you ever forgot about me again." Now you might be wondering what could possibly be in that box that would make a grown woman's face turn white as a sheet. You might be asking yourself what an 8-year-old could possibly know about family secrets that would make his own father prepare something like this months in advance. But here's the thing about families. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. Sometimes a child sees things that adults pretend don't exist. And sometimes, just sometimes, the smallest voice in the room ends up being the one that changes everything. What happened in that dining room didn't start that Sunday afternoon. It started years ago with small moments, tiny cuts, and a grandmother who decided that blood was thicker than love. But what my son did that day, that was the moment our family finally had to face the truth we'd all been dancing around for way too long. This is the story of how an 8-year-old boy taught his entire family what it really means to belong. Let me back up and tell you about our family. I'm Maya, and I thought I had it all figured out. My husband Derek and I have been married for 10 years. We have 2 kids. Lily, who's 12 and has Derek's blue eyes and stubborn streak, and Kai, who's 8 and has the biggest heart you've ever seen. Here's the thing, though. Kai isn't Derek's biological son. I was a single mom when Derek and I met, and Kai was just 2 years old. Derek didn't just fall in love with me. He fell head over heels for this little boy who called him Daddy, before I was even ready to say, "I love you." When Derek adopted Kai officially 3 years ago, it was supposed to be this beautiful moment. New last name, new birth certificate, the whole 9 yards. Derek cried harder than I did at the courthouse. He kept saying, "Now it's official. Now no one can ever take him away from us." But here's what I didn't expect. Not everyone in Derek's family saw it the same way. Every Friday night, we'd drive over to Grandma Evelyn's house for what she called family game night. Picture this cozy little living room with photos covering every surface, the smell of cookies, always in the oven, and Grandma Evelyn holding court like the queen she thought she was. These nights should have been perfect. Derek would set up the board games while I helped in the kitchen. The kids would run around, and for a few hours, we'd all just be together. But I started noticing things. Small things at first. When Lily would show Grandma her artwork from school, Evelyn would make this huge production out of it. "Oh my goodness, Lily, you're so talented. You get that artistic gene from your daddy's side of the family. We're all so creative, aren't we?" But when Kai would proudly show off his drawings, Evelyn would give them this quick glance and say something like, "That's nice, honey," before immediately turning her attention to something else. I told myself I was reading too much into it. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe she didn't know how to connect with boys the same way she did with girls. I kept making excuses because the alternative was too painful to consider. Then, there was the time Kai scored his first goal in soccer. This kid was so proud he couldn't stop talking about it for a week. Derek had recorded the whole thing on his phone, and when we got to Grandma's house, Kai was practically bouncing off the walls with excitement. "Grandma, Daddy recorded my goal. Want to see, and you know what she said?" She looked at Derek and said, "That's wonderful, honey. Hey, did you see that Lily made honor roll again? Now that's something to celebrate." The light in Kai's eyes just dimmed, like someone had turned down a switch. He quietly put Derek's phone away and went to sit in the corner with a coloring book. I caught Derek's eye across the room, and I could see he was struggling too. This was his mother, the woman who raised him, and she was breaking his son's heart one small moment at a time. But the moment that really got to me was during a game of charades. Lily was acting out some movie, and Grandma Evelyn was cheering her on like she was performing on Broadway. Yes, that's my granddaughter, so smart, so clever. Then it was Kai's turn. He was acting out Superman, and he was doing this adorable thing where he was pretending to fly around the room. Derek and I were guessing and laughing. But Grandma Evelyn just sat there with this blank expression on her face. When Kai finally revealed the answer, instead of praising him, she said, "Oh, well, that was obvious." I felt something break inside my chest. This little boy who called her grandma with such love and trust was slowly learning that love wasn't always returned the same way. That night, after we put the kids to bed, I found Kai sitting on his bedroom floor just staring at a photo from our last family vacation. It was all of us at the beach, and he was on Derek's shoulders, both of them grinning at the camera. "Mommy," he said quietly, "does Grandma love me?" And I did what every parent does when they're trying to protect their child from a truth that might hurt them. I lied. "Of course she does, baby. She loves you so much." But as I tucked him in that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was failing him, because deep down I was starting to realize that love isn't just about what you say. It's about what you do. And what Grandma Evelyn was doing was slowly but surely teaching my son that he didn't quite belong. The scary part, I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep pretending everything was fine. As the months went on, those small moments started adding up into something much bigger. Something I couldn't ignore anymore. Kai's 8th birthday was in March, about 2 weeks before Lily got her usual birthday card from Grandma Evelyn in the mail. It had $20 in it and this sweet note about how special she was. Lily's birthday wasn't until June. I figured Grandma was just getting organized early. But March 15th came and went, and nothing arrived for Kai. Not a card, not a call, nothing. Derek noticed too. I found him that night in our bedroom, just sitting on the edge of the bed with his head in his hands. "She forgot," he said quietly. "Maybe it's just late," I said, but we both knew I was grasping at straws. "Maya, my mother has never forgotten a birthday in her life. She has a calendar system that would put NASA to shame." That's when Derek told me something that made my blood run cold. He said his mom had been forgetting things about Kai for over a year. Missing his school plays while never missing Lily's. Asking about Lily's grades but never Kai's. Even at Christmas, Lily's presents were always wrapped in special paper with elaborate bows, while Kai's looked like they'd been wrapped in whatever was left over. "I keep telling myself she'll come around," Derek said. "That she just needs time to adjust. But Maya, it's been 3 years since the adoption. How much more time does she need?" I asked him why he hadn't said anything to her, and that's when I saw something in my husband I'd never seen before. Fear. "She's my mother," he said. "She raised me by herself after my dad died. She sacrificed everything for me. How do I tell the woman who gave me everything that she's failing my son?" But here's the thing that really got to me. Derek told me that when he was growing up, his mom used to say something that stuck with him. She'd say, "Blood family is forever, Derek. No matter what happens in life, blood family will always be there for each other." And suddenly, everything clicked into place. In Grandma Evelyn's mind, Kai wasn't blood family. He was just temporary, a kid who might disappear from their lives if Derek and I ever got divorced. The breaking point came during Easter dinner. We all showed up at Grandma's house dressed in our Sunday best. The table looked like something out of a magazine, complete with fresh flowers and her good china. Lily was wearing this adorable yellow dress that made her look like a little ray of sunshine. After dinner, Grandma Evelyn announced that she had special gifts for the grandchildren. Lily got this beautiful jewelry box with her initials engraved on it, plus a $50 bill tucked inside. I watched Kai's face light up with anticipation. Then, Grandma handed him a chocolate bunny from the drugstore. The kind that cost maybe $3 and still had the price sticker on it. "There you go, kiddo," she said, already turning her attention back to Lily's jewelry box. Kai held that chocolate bunny like it was made of gold because that's the kind of kid he is. He smiled and said thank you, like he meant it. But I saw Derek's jaw tighten, and I felt my own heart breaking for the 100th time. That night, after we got home, I cornered Derek in the kitchen. "We have to talk to her," I said. "Maya, I can't just—" "Yes, you can. You absolutely can. Your son is learning that he's not good enough, and you're teaching him that lesson by staying quiet." That hit Derek like a slap across the face. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? Every time you let her treat him differently and you say nothing, what message do you think that sends to Kai?" Derek leaned against the counter and closed his eyes. "I don't know how to have this conversation with her without destroying our relationship." "What about your relationship with your son?" And that's when Derek broke down. I mean, really broke down. This grown man, this father who would move mountains for his kids, just crumbled. "I'm scared, Maya. I'm scared that if I push her too hard, she'll cut us off completely. And then Kai won't have any grandmother at all. At least this way he has something." "Derek, listen to yourself. You're so worried about losing the scraps of affection she throws our way that you're willing to let our son believe he's not worth fighting for." We talked until almost 3 in the morning. Derek told me stories I'd never heard before about his childhood, about how his mother had always been someone who showed love through actions, not words. How she'd packed his lunch every single day, never missed a parent-teacher conference, worked 2 jobs to pay for his college. "That's exactly why this is so confusing," he said. "The woman who raised me would never deliberately hurt a child. But the woman who ignores my son, I don't know who that person is." By the end of that conversation, something had shifted between us. Derek looked at me with this determination I hadn't seen in months and said, "You're right, we have to do something. I need to figure out the right way." "What do you mean?" Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that gave me chills. "I mean, maybe it's time my mother learned that family isn't just about blood. Maybe it's time she understood that when she hurts my son, she hurts me too. And maybe it's time she realized that some things are more important than keeping the peace." I had no idea that Derek had already been planning something that would change everything. But I was about to find out just how far a father will go to protect his child. What I didn't realize was that while Derek and I were having these late-night conversations about protecting Kai, our 8-year-old son was having his own realizations about where he stood in this family. It was Kai's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, who first clued me in. She called me one afternoon and asked if we could talk. "Maya, I'm a little concerned about something Kai said during lunch today." My heart immediately started racing. What happened? Well, he was sitting with his friend Marcus and they were talking about their grandparents. Marcus was telling him about how his grandma always sends him care packages with homemade cookies and little toys. And Kai got very quiet. Mrs. Rodriguez paused and I could tell she was choosing her words carefully. Then Kai asked Marcus something that broke my heart. He said, "Do grandparents only love blood kids, like kids who came from their actual family?" I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Marcus didn't really understand the question, so he just shrugged it off. But Maya, the way Kai asked it, this little boy is carrying around some heavy thoughts. That night, I watched Kai more carefully than I ever had before. During dinner, when Lily was talking about her day, I noticed how Kai would glance at Derek every few seconds, like he was checking to make sure his dad was still listening to him. When Derek laughed at one of Kai's jokes, I saw this flash of relief cross my son's face. This kid was constantly seeking reassurance that he belonged, and I hadn't even noticed. After the kids went to bed, I told Derek about the phone call from Mrs. Rodriguez. We both just sat there in silence for the longest time. "He shouldn't have to question whether he's loved," Derek said finally. "No 8-year-old should carry that kind of doubt." That's when Derek told me something I'd never heard before. The story of the day he officially adopted Kai. "Do you remember how nervous I was that morning?" Derek asked. Of course I remembered. Derek had barely eaten breakfast, kept checking his watch every 5 minutes, and changed his shirt 3 times. I wasn't nervous about the paperwork or the legal stuff, Derek said. I was nervous because I wanted to make sure Kai understood what was happening, that this wasn't just some piece of paper we were signing. Derek told me that after we left the courthouse that day, he took Kai to the park, just the two of them. Kai was only 5 then, so Derek wasn't sure how much he really understood about adoption. I knelt down so we were eye level, Derek said, and I told him that from that day forward, I wasn't just going to be the man who loved his mommy. I was going to be his daddy in every single way that mattered. What did he say? He asked me if that meant I would always protect him like real daddies do in the movies. Derek's voice cracked a little when he said this next part. And I promised him, Maya. I looked this little boy in the eyes and I promised him that I would always protect him, that nobody would ever make him feel like he didn't belong in our family. Oh, Derek. But I'm failing him, aren't I? I'm letting my own mother make him question whether he's worthy of love, and I'm not doing anything to stop it. Derek was right, and we both knew it. But what we didn't know was that someone else in the family had been noticing too. Derek's sister Sarah had always been different from Grandma Evelyn. Where Evelyn was formal and traditional, Sarah was warm and spontaneous. She lived about an hour away, so we didn't see her as often as we saw Grandma. But when we did, she always made a point of connecting with both kids. I started noticing that during family gatherings, Sarah would seek Kai out specifically. While Grandma Evelyn was fussing over Lily, Sarah would be sitting on the floor with Kai asking him about his favorite books or teaching him card tricks. The turning point came during one of our Friday night dinners at Grandma's house. I was in the kitchen helping with dessert when I heard Sarah's voice from the living room, and something in her tone made me pause and listen. Kai, honey, come here for a second. I peeked around the corner and saw Sarah kneeling down next to Kai, who was coloring at the coffee table while everyone else was focused on some story Lily was telling. I brought something for you, Sarah said quietly, pulling a small wrapped package out of her purse. Kai's eyes went wide. For me, but it's not my birthday. It doesn't have to be your birthday for someone to give you a present. Sometimes people give presents just because they love you. Sarah's words were casual, but I could hear the intentional emphasis she put on love you. Kai unwrapped the gift, and inside was a small photo frame with a picture of him and Derek from last Christmas. Derek had Kai on his shoulders, and they were both laughing at something off camera. I thought you might like to have this in your room, Sarah said, to remind you how much your daddy loves you. Aunt Sarah, Kai said quietly, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Do you think Grandma wishes I wasn't part of the family? I had to grip the kitchen counter to keep myself steady. This 8-year-old boy was asking his aunt point blank about something that Derek and I had been tiptoeing around for months. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that made me realize we had an ally we didn't even know about. Kai, look at me. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Sometimes they don't know how to love people who are different from them. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Do you understand? I think so. Your daddy chose you, Kai. Out of all the little boys in the whole world, he chose you to be his son. That makes you pretty special, don't you think? I watched Kai nod, clutching that picture frame like it was the most precious thing in the world. And you know what else? Sarah continued. I chose you too. I chose you to be my nephew, and I'm never going to stop choosing you. That night, after we got home, Kai came into our bedroom carrying that picture frame. Daddy, Aunt Sarah said you chose me. Is that true? Derek pulled Kai up onto the bed and wrapped him in the biggest hug. Buddy, choosing you was the easiest decision I ever made in my entire life. You know why? Why? Because you make me proud to be your dad every single day. As I watched them together, something clicked into place for me. Kai wasn't just questioning whether Grandma Evelyn loved him. He was questioning whether he deserved to be loved at all. And that's when I realized that Derek's late-night planning sessions weren't just about confronting his mother. They were about making sure our son never had to doubt his place in this family ever again. But I had no idea how far Derek was willing to go to keep that promise he made 5 years ago in the park. 2 weeks later, Grandma Evelyn called to invite us for Easter brunch. She made it sound like this grand family tradition, even though we'd never done Easter brunch at her house before. "I want to make this year extra special," she told Derek over the phone. "I have some wonderful surprises for the grandchildren." Derek and I exchanged glances when he hung up. After everything that had been happening, the word surprises made us both nervous. Easter morning arrived and we all got dressed up in our Sunday best. Lily looked adorable in a pink dress with little white flowers, and Kai wore his navy blue suit that made him look like a tiny businessman. He was so excited about the surprises Grandma had mentioned that he could barely sit still in the car. "Do you think she got me something good, Daddy?" he asked Derek from the back seat. "I'm sure whatever she got you, it'll be perfect, buddy," Derek replied, but I could hear the tension in his voice. When we arrived at Grandma's house, the dining room table looked like something out of a magazine. Fresh tulips, cloth napkins, the works. Sarah was already there, and she immediately scooped both kids up in huge hugs. "There are my favorite nephew and niece," she said, making sure to give them equal attention. During brunch, Grandma Evelyn was in her element playing the perfect hostess. She asked Lily about school, complimented her dress, and made a big fuss about how grown up she was getting. 12 years old already," Grandma said. "Lily, you're practically a young lady now." Kai tried to join the conversation a few times, telling stories about his soccer team and a book report he was excited about. But Grandma's responses were polite, but brief. The kind of responses you give to a stranger's child at a party. After we finished eating, Grandma announced it was time for the Easter surprises. "Lily, sweetheart, come here," she said, producing this beautifully wrapped box from the sideboard. Lily opened it, and inside was the latest iPhone still in its packaging, along with a $100 bill tucked into the box. "Grandma," Lily squealed. "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." "You're growing up so fast, and I thought it was time you had a phone like all the other kids your age," Grandma said, beaming with pride. Then she turned to Kai, and my heart started pounding. "And for you, Kai," she said, handing him a small bag from the drugstore. Inside was a pack of crayons and a coloring book featuring cartoon characters. The kind of thing you might grab at the last minute for a 5-year-old. Kai's face went through about 5 different emotions in the span of 10 seconds. Confusion, disappointment, and then this forced smile that broke my heart into a million pieces. "Thank you, Grandma," he said quietly, because that's the kind of kid he is. But I watched the light dim in his eyes the same way it had been dimming for months. Sarah, who had been watching this whole exchange, suddenly stood up. "Actually, Evelyn, I have something for the kids too," she said, and there was something sharp in her voice that made everyone pay attention. She pulled out 2 identical gift bags. "These are from me and Uncle Mike." Inside each bag was a $25 gift card to the toy store and a handwritten note that said, "To one of my favorite kids in the whole world." "Thank you, Aunt Sarah," both kids said at the same time. But then Grandma Evelyn did something that made my blood boil. She looked at Sarah and said, "Sarah, honey, you really didn't need to make such a production out of gift giving. It's not a competition." The implication was clear. Sarah was somehow being inappropriate by treating both children equally. Sarah's face went pale, but she didn't say anything. The rest of brunch passed in this awkward silence, with everyone pretending nothing had happened. On the drive home, nobody talked. Lily was playing with her new phone, and Kai was quietly coloring in his book, but I could see Derek's hands gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. That night, after we put the kids to bed, I confronted Derek in our bedroom. "We can't keep doing this," I said. "We can't keep subjecting Kai to this treatment and pretending it's normal." "I know. Because today was humiliating, Derek. Your mother gave our daughter a $150 gift and gave our son something she probably grabbed at a gas station on the way home from work." Derek sat down on the edge of our bed and put his head in his hands. "Maya, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you weeks ago." "What?" Derek walked over to our closet and pulled down a small red wooden box from the top shelf. It was about the size of a jewelry box with a tiny brass latch. "I made this for Kai 3 months ago," he said. "What do you mean you made it for Kai?" Derek opened the box, and inside I could see some papers, a photograph, and what looked like a letter. The night after Kai asked Mrs. Rodriguez about grandparents only loving blood kids, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that promise I made him when he was 5 about always protecting him. Derek's voice was getting shaky. So I wrote my mother a letter, a real letter explaining how her treatment of Kai was affecting him, affecting all of us. I put a copy of Kai's adoption papers in here, and that photo of him and me from the courthouse the day it became official. "Derek, what are you planning to do with this?" "I gave it to Kai last week." My heart stopped. "You gave it to an 8-year-old. Not to open," Derek said quickly. "I told him it was a special box that contained something very important, and that if Grandma ever made him feel forgotten again, if she ever made him question whether he belonged in our family, he could give this box to her." I stared at my husband like I'd never seen him before. "You're putting the responsibility on our 8-year-old son to confront your mother." "Maya, listen to me. Kai is never going to believe he deserves to be defended unless he sees that he has the power to defend himself. This isn't about making him fight our battles. This is about showing him that his voice matters." Derek sat down next to me and took my hands. "My mother needs to hear the truth from someone who can't be dismissed or ignored. If it comes from me, she'll say I'm being emotional. If it comes from you, she'll say you're being overprotective. But if it comes from Kai, she'll have to face what she's been doing." Exactly. I looked at this man I'd been married to for 10 years, and I realized he'd been planning this for months. Quietly, carefully, making sure our son would never again have to wonder if he was worthy of being protected. "What did you tell Kai about when to use it?" "I told him to trust his heart, that he would know when the moment was right." "And what if she doesn't react the way you're hoping? What if this backfires?" Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that gave me chills. "Then at least Kai will know that his father kept his promise, that when someone hurt him, we didn't just stand by and let it happen." As I lay in bed that night, I kept thinking about that little red box and the 8-year-old boy who was now carrying the power to change everything. I had no idea that the next family gathering would be the moment everything finally came to a head. The next morning, I woke up to find Kai already dressed and sitting on his bed, holding that little red box in his lap. He wasn't playing with toys or watching cartoons like he usually did on Sunday mornings. He was just sitting there, completely still, staring at the box, like he was having some kind of internal conversation with himself. "Hey, buddy," I said softly from his doorway. "You're up early." "Mom, I think today is the day." My heart started pounding. "What do you mean?" "Dad told me I would know when the right time was to give Grandma the box. And I think today is the day." Kai looked up at me with those big brown eyes, and I saw something in them I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was determination. "Are you sure, sweetheart?" Yesterday, when Grandma gave the Lily that phone and gave me the coloring book, I felt really small inside. Like maybe I don't matter as much as Lily does. Hearing my 8-year-old son articulate this feeling so clearly made my chest ache. But then I remembered what Dad told me when he gave me this box. He said that sometimes grown-ups need help remembering how to love people the right way, and maybe Grandma just forgot. What if giving her the box doesn't help her remember? Kai was quiet for a moment, turning the box over in his small hands. "Then at least I'll know I tried. Dad says that's what brave people do. They try even when they're scared." Derek appeared in the doorway behind me, and I could tell by his face that he'd heard our conversation. "Kai, you don't have to do this if you don't want to," Derek said. "We can find another way." "No, Daddy, I want to. I want Grandma to know that I'm part of this family too." The drive to Grandma Evelyn's house that morning felt different. Kai sat in the back seat clutching the red box while Lily chatted about her plans to download apps on her new phone. Derek kept glancing at Kai in the rearview mirror, and I could see the mixture of pride and terror in his eyes. When we arrived, everything seemed normal at first. Grandma had prepared another elaborate spread, complete with fresh flowers and her fancy china. Sarah was already there, and she immediately noticed something different about Kai. "You look very handsome today, Kai," she said, giving him a hug. "Thank you, Aunt Sarah. I have something important to do today." Sarah caught my eye over Kai's head, and I could tell she sensed that something significant was about to happen. We all sat down for brunch, and for the first 20 minutes, everything proceeded like it always did. Grandma fussed over Lily asked about her new phone and complimented her dress. She was polite to Kai but distant, asking him surface-level questions about school without really listening to his answers. I watched my son during this time, and I could see him gathering his courage with every passing minute. Then right in the middle of Grandma telling some story about her neighbor's garden, Kai suddenly stood up from his chair. The room went completely silent. "Grandma," Kai said, his voice clear and steady, "I have something for you." He walked around the table carrying that little red box, and everyone's eyes followed him. Lily put down her phone. Sarah stopped mid-sip of her coffee. Derek's face had gone completely pale. "What's this, sweetie?" Grandma asked, but there was something in her voice that suggested she already knew this wasn't going to be a typical gift-giving moment. Kai placed the box gently in front of her and said something that made the entire room freeze. "Dad told me to give this to you if you ever forgot about me again." The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop. Grandma Evelyn stared at the box like it might explode. Her face went through several different expressions: confusion, defensiveness, and then something that looked almost like fear. "Kai, sweetheart, I'm not sure what you mean by—" "Yesterday you gave Lily a phone, and money, and you gave me crayons," Kai said simply. "That made me feel forgotten." Grandma's hands were shaking slightly as she reached for the box. I don't understand what this has to do with—" "Just open it, Mom," Derek said quietly, and there was something in his voice that made it clear this wasn't a request. Grandma Evelyn lifted the small brass latch and opened the box. The first thing she saw was the photograph. Derek and Kai at the courthouse on adoption day, both of them grinning at the camera. Derek had his arm around Kai's shoulders, and you could see the pure joy on both their faces. Underneath the photo were the official adoption papers, with all the legal stamps and signatures that made Kai officially part of our family. And underneath that was Derek's letter. Grandma pulled out the letter and began reading it silently. I watched her face change as she read Derek's words, and I could only imagine what he had written. Probably everything he'd been afraid to say out loud for the past 3 years. The longer she read, the more her composure started to crack. Her hands began to tremble, and I saw tears forming in her eyes. Finally, she looked up at Derek with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. It was shame, pure and simple. "Derek, I didn't realize—" "Yes, you did," Derek said, and his voice was gentle but firm. "Mom, you're the smartest woman I know. You knew exactly what you were doing." Grandma Evelyn looked around the table at all of us, and then her eyes landed on Kai, who was still standing next to her chair with that same determined expression on his face. "Kai," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Grandma," Kai said. "Dad said that sometimes people make mistakes because they're scared. Are you scared of me?" And that's when Grandma Evelyn completely broke down. "Oh, sweet boy," she said, reaching out to touch Kai's face. "I'm not scared of you. I'm scared of losing you." "What do you mean?" Grandma looked at Derek, then at me, and I could see her struggling to find the right words. "I was afraid that if your mommy and daddy if something ever happened to their marriage, you would disappear from our lives. And I thought maybe if I didn't love you too much, it wouldn't hurt as badly if that day came." The honesty of this admission hit everyone like a lightning bolt. Kai looked at her with the kind of wisdom that only children seem to possess and said, "Grandma, even if something happened to Mom and Dad, I would still be your grandson. The papers in that box say so." And that's when something shifted in the room. Something fundamental and irreversible. Grandma Evelyn pulled Kai into the tightest hug I'd ever seen her give anyone. and she held him like she was trying to make up for 3 years of distance in a single moment. "I'm so sorry," she kept repeating. "I'm so, so sorry." But Kai, being the amazing kid he is, just hugged her back and said, "It's okay, Grandma. We can start over." And in that moment, I knew that Derek's plan had worked better than any of us could have imagined. Our 8-year-old son had just taught his grandmother something that all the adult conversations in the world couldn't accomplish. He had shown her that love isn't something you protect by withholding it. It's something you strengthen by giving it freely. But just when I thought we were having a breakthrough moment, everything took a sharp turn in a direction none of us saw coming. After that tender hug between Kai and Grandma Evelyn, she suddenly pulled back and looked at Derek's letter again. This time, her face wasn't filled with shame and regret. It was filled with something much darker. Anger. She stood up abruptly, still clutching the letter, and her voice went from whispered apologies to something I'd never heard from her before. "How dare you!" she said, her voice shaking with rage. "Mom," Derek said, clearly confused by the sudden change in her tone. "How dare you put this child up to this? How dare you manipulate an 8-year-old into doing your dirty work?" The transformation was so sudden and so complete that everyone at the table just stared at her in shock. "Derek, if you had problems with how I treat your family, you should have been man enough to come to me directly, instead of hiding behind a child." "Mom, that's not what this was about," Derek started to say, but Grandma Evelyn was just getting warmed up. "This is manipulation, Derek. This is emotional blackmail. You've turned this innocent child into a weapon against his own grandmother." I watched Kai's face crumple as he processed what she was saying. The confusion and hurt in his eyes was heartbreaking. "But Grandma," Kai said quietly, "I wanted to give you the box. Daddy didn't make me." "Don't you dare speak to me right now!" Grandma Evelyn snapped at Kai, and that's when I knew we had crossed a line we could never uncross. The entire room went dead silent again, but this time, it was the kind of silence that comes before a storm, not after one. That's when Sarah stood up. I had never seen Derek's sister look angry before. Sarah was always the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed over family tensions and kept everyone happy. But as she rose from her chair, there was something in her expression that made my blood run cold. "How could you?" Sarah said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Sarah, this doesn't concern you," Grandma Evelyn said dismissively. "Doesn't concern me? Doesn't concern me?" Sarah's voice was getting louder. "That little boy is my nephew, and you just spoke to him like he was some kind of criminal." Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. "Mom, I have watched you treat Kai differently for 3 years. 3 years. And every time I tried to bring it up, you dismissed me. You made me feel like I was imagining things. Sarah, you're being dramatic. No, I'm being honest. Something you apparently stopped doing a long time ago." Sarah turned to look at all of us around the table. "Do you want to know what she said to me after last Easter, after she gave Lily that expensive gift and gave Kai practically nothing?" "Sarah, don't you dare," Grandma Evelyn warned. "She told me that she didn't want to get too attached to Kai because you never know what might happen with these adoption situations." Those were her exact words. The room went so quiet you could hear the clock ticking on the mantel. Derek's face had gone completely white. "She said what?" "I begged her to reconsider." Sarah continued, the words pouring out of her like water through a broken dam. "I told her that Kai was legally and forever part of this family, but she said blood family was different. That blood family was permanent." I reached over and took Kai's hand. He was standing there listening to his aunt reveal things about his grandmother that were probably too adult for him to fully understand, but painful enough for him to feel deeply. Lily, who had been quietly observing this whole scene, suddenly spoke up. "Grandma, why would you say that about Kai? He's my brother." Out of the mouths of babes? Grandma Evelyn looked around the table at all of us, and I could see her realizing that she had been exposed in a way she never expected. All her careful politeness, all her subtle exclusions, all her justifications had been laid bare. Instead of owning up to it, instead of apologizing, she doubled down. You're all ganging up on me, she said, her voice getting shrill. I've been nothing but welcoming to this family, and this is how you repay me by ambushing me in my own home. Mom, nobody ambushed you, Derek said, and his voice was calmer than I'd ever heard it. Kai gave you a box with the truth in it. If that feels like an ambush, maybe you need to ask yourself why. Don't you psychoanalyze me, Derek. I raised you better than this. You raised me to believe that family takes care of family, Derek said. And Kai is my family. He's your family too, whether you want to accept that or not. Grandma Evelyn stared at her son for a long moment, and I could see something crumbling behind her eyes. Not just her composure, but her whole worldview. I can't do this, she said finally. I can't sit here and be attacked by my own family. She grabbed her purse from the counter and headed toward the front door. Mom, where are you going? Derek called after her. I'm leaving, and when you're all ready to apologize for this circus, you know where to find me. And with that, she walked out of her own house, leaving the rest of us sitting around her perfectly set table in stunned silence. The front door slammed, and we heard her car start and pull out of the driveway. Lily was the first one to speak. Is Grandma coming back? I don't know, sweetheart, Derek said quietly. Kai was still holding my hand, and I could feel his little body trembling. Did I do something wrong, Mommy? No, baby, you did something very brave. Sarah, who was still wiping tears from her eyes, came around the table and knelt down next to Kai. Kai, look at me. What just happened had nothing to do with you being wrong. Sometimes when people are forced to look at themselves honestly, they don't like what they see. And instead of trying to change, they get angry at the people who showed them the truth. But I just wanted her to love me, Kai said, and his voice broke on the word love. She does love you, Sarah said firmly. She's just scared of admitting it. And sometimes fear makes people do really stupid things. As we all sat there processing what had just happened, Sarah opened up to Derek and me about things we'd never known. This isn't the first time Mom has struggled with accepting people who weren't born into the family, she said. When Mike and I got married, it took her 2 years to warm up to him because he wasn't from our social circle. I had no idea, Derek said. She's always been someone who needs to control how love gets distributed in this family. And Kai's adoption threatened that control because it meant Derek chose to expand the family without her input. Sarah looked at both kids who were listening intently. But you know what? The most beautiful families are the ones that choose each other, not just the ones that share DNA. As we finally packed up to leave Grandma's house that afternoon, I realized something profound had happened. Yes, the confrontation had ended badly. Yes, Grandma Evelyn had stormed out instead of facing the truth about her behavior. But Kai had found his voice. He had spoken his truth with courage and dignity. And sometimes that's all you can do. Sometimes standing up for yourself is worth it, even when the other person isn't ready to hear what you have to say. Looking back now, 3 months after that Sunday brunch that changed everything, I can see the truth clearly. That little red box didn't destroy anything. It revealed what really mattered. It revealed that Derek had been carrying the weight of protecting his son's heart for years, planning and preparing for the moment when silence was no longer an option. It revealed that Kai was stronger and braver than any of us had given him credit for. And it revealed that sometimes the people we expect to love us unconditionally are the ones who need to learn how to love us properly. The weeks following that confrontation weren't easy. Grandma Evelyn didn't call, didn't text, didn't acknowledge any of us. Derek struggled with guilt, wondering if he should reach out to her first. But every time he considered it, he would look at Kai and remember why that box had been necessary in the first place. Our house, though, became filled with a different kind of energy. There was this lightness that hadn't been there before. Kai stopped asking if we could skip family gatherings. He stopped getting that anxious look on his face when Grandma's name came up in conversation. Instead, our kitchen became the center of our world again. Last weekend, all 4 of us decided to make chocolate chip cookies from scratch. Kai was standing on a step stool, carefully measuring flour, while Derek guided his hands. Lily was cracking eggs, making a complete mess, but laughing the entire time. And I was watching this beautiful chaos unfold, thinking about how perfect imperfect moments like this really are. Dad, Kai said while stirring the cookie dough, I'm glad I gave Grandma that box. Yeah, why is that, buddy? Because now I know that even if someone doesn't love me the way I want them to, other people do. And that's enough. Derek caught my eye over Kai's head, and I could see the pride radiating from his face. That's very wise, Kai, Derek said. Some of the best lessons I've learned came from 8-year-olds. 2 days later, Sarah showed up at our front door with a gift bag and a huge smile. What's this for? Kai asked when she handed it to him. Well, I realized that I've been calling you my nephew for 3 years, but I never officially welcomed you to the cousin club. Inside the bag was a t-shirt that said, Official Cousin, and a handwritten certificate that Sarah had made herself complete, with gold star stickers and everything. It was silly and sweet and exactly what Kai needed. Now you're officially part of the cousin club, Sarah said, and cousin club members stick together no matter what. Even if Grandma stays mad, Kai asked. Especially if Grandma stays mad, Sarah said firmly. That's what real family does. We show up for each other. That night, after Sarah left, Kai hung his official cousin certificate on his bedroom wall right next to the photo of him and Derek from adoption day. As I tucked him into bed, he said something that made my heart swell. Mom, I don't feel sad about Grandma anymore. You don't know, because I learned that I can't make someone love me, but I can make sure the people who do love me know how much that means to me. And that's when I realized that this whole experience had taught my 8-year-old son something that some adults never learn. The difference between demanding love and deserving love. The difference between settling for scraps and requiring respect. As for Grandma Evelyn Derek, and I decided that the door would always be open for her to come back into our lives. But it would be on the condition that she treated all of her grandchildren with equal love and respect. No more excuses, no more justifications, no more making an 8-year-old boy question his worth. Because here's what that little red box taught all of us. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. And when someone shows you that they're capable of changing, believe that too. But most importantly, it taught us that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most powerful truths. If you're listening to this story, and you recognize yourself in it, if you have a child who's being overlooked or undervalued or made to feel less, then I want you to know something. Your child's voice matters. Their feelings matter. Their place in the family matters. And if one voice can't be heard, then it's time for other voices to speak up. Because every child deserves to know, without a doubt, that they belong. Every child deserves to feel chosen, not just tolerated. And every child deserves adults in their life who will fight for their right to be loved completely and unconditionally. That little red box didn't just change our family dynamic. It changed the way we think about standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Because sometimes the most important conversations are the ones we've been avoiding the longest, and sometimes an 8-year-old has to show the adults how it's done. What do you think about Kai's decision to give his grandmother that box? Have you ever had to stand up for a child who was being treated unfairly? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button for more real family stories that matter. Thanks for listening.